Hi, I am Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. Today, we're kind of deviating away from government a little bit, but you'll see why very shortly. I have with me a lady who I've come to respect very, very much, Kelly Kowal. Kelly, you're the founder of My Warrior's Place. And you know, with the radio show, I have Veterans Corner, and with this show, I have all kind of veterans organizations calling me, people who say, we serve veterans. And when I look into it, not so much. There are some very good ones out there, but there's such a multitude of them. And when I first talked to you, I thought, let me see what this lady does. And I am so impressed. And I know our audience will be when we finish this broadcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you get involved with starting My Warrior's Place.
Well, I think sometimes some of the best things come from tragedy. And of course, that's my story. My son served with the 82nd Airborne, was stationed in Afghanistan, and unfortunately was killed while out on a combat mission.
Ouch.
And you know, it's devastating when you lose somebody. Thankfully, we have people like my son and those that are willing to go and make that sacrifice for us. But I saw how much it really devastated his brothers in arms, and I already knew that, you know, the war had been going on for a long time, talking to Vietnam veterans, you know, the horrors of war and what they had to put up with. And I ended up, not by choice, because my son really started coming to me and from heaven and pushed me in a direction.
Dreams.
Yes, in dreams, and wanted me to buy a boat and take out veterans and military service members and families who had endured the loss of a fallen warrior out to his favorite places, because we loved being out on the water or under it, you know, whether we were scuba diving, snorkeling, fishing, sailing. I mean, we just loved
the water.
Water, yeah. So it was a good fit. I, of course, didn't want to buy a boat because they're applicably named boats break out another 1,000. Yeah. So he won, though, and I ended up with my boat, and that's exactly what I started doing. And things just continued to happen, and we are now with My Warrior's Place.
Of course, with the boat, you have to dock it somewhere. And docking is not cheap for those of you that don't know about boats. Docking is expensive.
It is very expensive.
And was the first boat you got that pontoon boat, the original pontoon boat that I saw?
The original boat that we received was actually a deck boat that I bought. And it was 20 foot, a hurricane deck boat. And it was perfect for going out to the island or just kind of going through the rivers. But it was not wheelchair accessible. And so my dream was to have a wheelchair accessible boat.
And the one that's sitting there idle now, was that the one that replaced the one you had?
The one that's what I call the albatross.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a sad story, what happened on that.
It is.
Somebody took your money and didn't do the job to fix it and make it work?
Yeah, we paid $6,000 to have it custom made to be wheelchair accessible. And unfortunately, the gentleman just took our money and basically ran.
That's why I say there's a lot of people out there who say they're helping veterans, but they're scams.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So be real careful. There are legitimate places like this, but do your homework before you start writing checks, right?
Yes, yes. And you know, there are what I would consider legitimate nonprofits out there, but you need to see what percentage is going to the cause versus in somebody's pocket.
And all of it, in your instance, is going to the cause, I understand.
Yeah, we have no paid staff whatsoever. Everybody is 100% volunteer, including myself. I put in probably 60 to 80 hours a week as a volunteer.
I'll vouch for that. I've been over there night and day, and it's amazing. Let's go on with the boat, though, because even out of tragedy, with your son, it's a tragedy, but this is so powerful and so good that's happening. So even out of the tragedy of the man running off with your money and not fixing the boat,
yes,
the story goes on. And to me, I believe if you ask God for something, you work hard for it, it's going to come to you.
Yes.
And you have to believe that same thing.
Yeah,
Because let's tell the story now of what replaced the albatross.
Yeah. I've actually come to learn not to have that knee-jerk reaction when something bad happens, because there's probably a good reason for it. Sometimes you get to know it and sometimes you don't. And with the boat, I got to know what it was. Basically, I was able to speak to a gentleman who owned a boat manufacturing company.
You went after him, though.
I did. I did.
It wasn't a matter that you happened to meet him at a cocktail party.
No, but
I said you ask God for something, you go out and work for it.
Yeah, but I don't have time to read the newspaper. And it just so happened that the one moment I had to pick up a paper, the story about his boat, his company built him a boat to go to Cuba and back. And he has a condo in Clearwater, so he knows the Tampa area.
And it's a pontoon boat, correct?
And it's a pontoon boat, yeah. And that's exactly what we needed. And I thought, well, who is this guy? And so I Googled him.
And he's a company up in Michigan. What's the company?
Avalon Tahoe.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I put in a phone call to him. And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call back. And he had been at a trade show. So that's why he didn't return the call right away, but wanted to know what he could do for us. And I said, well, before you get into that, did you make it to Cuba? And he said, oh yeah. Told me a great story about how they made it to Cuba and back. And then we got around to why I was calling and explained about what had happened with the boat that we had.
Albatross?
The Albatross. And he said, well, how much money do you think you could raise? And knowing that I was wanting probably a $50,000 or $60,000 boat.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I told him, well, maybe 10,000. And he said, you know what? We've had a good year. If you can come up with $10,000.
In writing.
Yes.
In writing.
In writing.
You got it.
You got it. So yeah. So.
$10,000 for a $50,000 boat.
Yeah.
Now that's a leap of faith. But it goes more. There's more to this story. She had no $10,000 at the moment. But what happened the next day?
The very next day, I actually had to go and do a presentation to the American Legion Post 275 up in Dunedin.
Okay.
And after the meeting, they came out and said, we would like to make a donation to My Warrior's Place, and you can use the funds for anything you need to use it for. And it's $5,000.
So you're halfway there.
Halfway there.
The next day.
The very next day.
The story gets even better. What happens the next day?
The next day I get a phone call at about...
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue at about 5:30 that evening from a gentleman who had met me several months ago at a fundraising event we were doing. And his family had a foundation, and he wanted to choose My Warrior's Place to receive funding, and it's usually $5,000 to $6,000. And if we were to get the funding, what would we do with the money? And I named a couple of what I thought practical things that a lot of foundations want to fund, and he kept saying no. And so I finally said, well, there's this boat. And he goes, yeah, tell me about the boat. So I told him about the boat, and he said, get it all in writing, and I can almost guarantee you'll have the money. And so
but he didn't give you the $5,000 to make you 10, right?
No. We actually ended up getting $7,000 from him.
Because he wanted you to have life jackets and things to go with the boat.
Yes, life jackets and anything else that we needed to make the boat secure and top-notch for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that isn't a story of faith, and if that doesn't move you, nothing will. Because, I think it's fabulous.
Yes,
you had nothing. You said, I'll get it. The man said, I'll give it to you. It all came together in a matter of days.
2 days.
And now we have this gorgeous boat that you take people out on a regular basis.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Wheelchair accessible?
Yes.
And it's for any veteran.
Any veteran, any military service member, any family of the fallen, and
you don't charge for this, right?
No, we do not charge a penny to take them
Everything
out.
comes from donations to My Warrior's Place, and it is a 501(c)(3), correct?
That's correct.
So
yes.
this is really kind of neat.
Yes.
The boat, I know, is going out here in the next day or so with a veteran's family who's fallen.
Yes.
And they're pretty shook up, and they're all vets themselves.
Yes.
And you're going to take them out.
Yeah.
It's the Dossie family. And in fact, you've got a brand new sign that you were given by the Military Support Trust.
Yes, that's correct.
And it hadn't got put up yet, but I believe you have a picture of the Dossie family holding up that sign.
Yeah, it's very special that they helped hold up the sign so we could get pictures of it.
And you're going to actually have it installed shortly, correct?
Yes, I was just starting to make phone calls to find somebody that would help us put the sign up because it needs a frame. I mean, all it is just the sign. And there's a local company called Kenco Manufacturing right there in Ruskin.
Mm-hmm.
And they are actually building the steel frame for the sign. And hopefully we'll have it done by Friday maybe, or Monday at the latest.
Another blessing.
Another blessing, yes. And they're donating their time and service and labor and parts and everything. So hopefully next week sometime we'll actually have our new sign up, which is just phenomenal.
I know I love it when somebody says to me, thank you for your service. But when I see people like Kenco and this boat company and the rest of them really getting in there and doing something for the vets, it really touches my heart. It really does.
Well,
now let's talk about where it is.
Yes.
'Cause we haven't mentioned that yet. And every Tuesday morning.
No.
Is it
once a month.
Once a month. First
Tuesday of every
All
month.
right.
Yes.
You do what?
Free coffee and donuts for any veteran, military service member, and their significant others, first responders as well.
What about somebody who watched this broadcast and they just like to come out and see what the facility look like, but they're not military?
They're more than welcome to come out. We love giving tours because it makes all the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears that we do. People are amazed when they come out and see what we've done with an all-volunteer staff. And
I am.
Yeah, it is truly amazing.
And let's talk about the facility itself. You're right there on the river in Ruskin.
Yes.
You go down Shell Point Road to 22nd Street, turn in on 22nd Street, and that's pretty much your property all the way to the river right there then, right?
Yes, it is. It
Because
didn't start out that big.
I know.
It started
but
out
it's another
just
part of the story, which I hope we have time to do. If we don't, we'll get you back.
Okay.
But you go down to the river and it's beautiful. There are places to sit and just meditate and feel good and go out on the dock. And you actually have places where veterans and their families can rent for a very reasonable amount. What is it, $40 a day?
45, yeah.
$45 a day. And
Yeah.
they're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're lovely little cottages.
Yes.
And it sort of reminds me of the old-time cottages that you used to rent on lakes.
Yes.
Very much the same, all clean and beautiful. And if they go there and they do that, and even if they don't, there are kayaks and canoes and all kind of water devices. In fact, some for disabled veterans that won't tip over, right?
Right, right. We have roundabouts that won't tip over that if they have physical challenges, they are able to actually use this vessel to get around on the water and not worry about tipping over. We also have stand-up paddle boards. And then
Now, I'd tip over in that with my braces the VA gave me, and it wouldn't work. But I enjoy watching people do that.
yes, it's a lot of fun. I've tried it a couple times.
So I mentioned the property is all yours now, coming from the Warriors. It's theirs. I shouldn't say yours, because,
Yes.
but you are the personification of it. What happened? How did you manage to get that?
Well,
It's a trailer park, right?
yeah, it's a mobile home trailer park, and the day we purchased the property, which was the original part of my Warriors Place, which was almost 2 acres right on the Little Manatee River, and we're 1 mile from the bay, so we get all the saltwater fish in
Right,
there.
yeah.
And we're fortunate because we have a canal coming up one side, so we have water on 2 sides of the property. But from day one, the owner of that property would come down just to see what we were doing, and I would kind of whisper in her ear, if you're ever thinking about selling, please come talk to us first. And it's another one of those where didn't know where I was going to come up with the funding, but I at least
come
want
to the conclusion that does not stop you.
No, no, it doesn't. But after several years, she finally came to us in 2016 and said, "Well, you know, what were you thinking?" And that started us on a negotiation of what we could and couldn't do, and we were able to come to terms. And so December of last year, we actually closed on the property and purchased it. So now we've got room to grow.
And it's kind of nice what you did there, because she had a lot of long-term tenants that she did not want moved.
Right.
And so you made an agreement there that they could stay. I'm not sure exactly how it was.
Yeah.
But, and as they go, their facilities or their houses that are still left, you can then turn into facilities, if they're usable,
Right.
for veterans.
Right.
And the idea is ultimately to have that all for veterans.
Right. Basically, they have a choice of either to sell it to us at fair market value when they're no longer able to live. Most of them are snowbirds, so they come and go. But
and you've agreed not to raise the rent, I think?
Right, not
nature?
to raise the rent on them, and that it just turns out to be really a really good win-win situation because they're older mobile homes, 1980s, 1970s.
Sure.
So there's not a lot of value in them.
Right.
But we've learned how to take something and kind of go in and really.
Well, there's a lot of people in the veterans community that volunteer some hours for you too, right?
Oh yeah.
And not only the veteran community, again, people who are not veterans who do that. It's amazing to me. Bob's Vets, who you're very deeply involved
Yes.
with, and Terry Dossie, who passed away recently. But there's a fellow, Freddie, that lives out in Waimama, who's not a vet, but he's got this trailer and truck, and he makes it available for the Veterans Parade there in Ruskin.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of non-vets who are helping us in a lot of different ways.
Well, you know, it goes back to, are you just talk or are you walking the talk, you know? And I, what really touches our veterans, what really touches our military service members is when they see somebody walking the talk. And I think that's one of the things that makes my Warriors Place so special, is because when you come there, you see that people really do care about our veterans. You see that people really do care about our military service members, and they really care about the families who, of course, their loved one made the ultimate sacrifice.
And there are some really nice memorials out there.
Yes, there are. Yes.
And it is a nice thing to buy one of those bricks and put it in.
Yes, we do sell the bricks, the 8x8s and the 4x8s, and we have several places on the property where they can go. And in fact, Terry Dossie's family, the Bob's Vets, raised the money for a brick for Terry, and so we'll be installing that on July 3rd, at that first Tuesday of the month when we do coffee and donuts. So we'll be installing that brick in front of the Navy flag.
I think anybody that goes out there and visits will find that it's just so peaceful. And for those especially suffering PTSD or any of those kind of things, or even just suffering loss, to go out there and sit and watch the water, go out on the dock and watch the water. We live on a lake, so I enjoy that myself, just watching the water. But there's even more there to see.
It's definitely very, very therapeutic with all the wildlife, and you know, sometimes we see dolphins, sometimes we see manatees. Always see a lot of you know, birds, even eagles out there, and hawks, and it's just really neat to see.
You were telling me just recently you got a call from a special services guy.
Yes.
That was needing a place to stay.
Yes, special ops. He has 2 special ops dogs that were trained and
Which most hotels are not real happy with.
No, and he was, you know, he said, I can't afford to keep paying 150 plus a night. It's killing me. And so someone had told him about us, and we got him in right away. And I mean, he called me yesterday, in fact, and said, he's now settled into his new condo. He got it, everything closed, and he's in there. But I mean, he brought me to tears, telling me how thankful he was, and how, my Warriors Place and I helped to renew his faith, and what he's doing, why he's doing it, and that he just couldn't thank me enough. And I'm like, no, don't thank me. We need to be thanking you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
I want to get into the new building you built. We've only got a short period of time, but there is a new building. It's flood prevented. It's way up on stilts.
Yes.
Not everything is.
Yes.
So we have to hope that we don't get massive flooding.
Yeah.
But that building is. And what was the purpose of building that building?
Well, we needed something that was wheelchair accessible. The buildings we currently have are not wheelchair accessible because they were all pre-1985, before ADA or anything like that. So of course they're all grandfathered in. But we wanted to be able to accommodate wheelchairs. I mean, that's part of what we do. And so to be able to have a house that's wheelchair accessible, wheelchair bathroom, everything. And so, it's being built, again, by a lot of volunteer labor, a lot of local companies that have donated their time, their services, their products.
It'd be nice if you could find a lift company that would
Yeah.
take that wheelchair instead of having to push it up that ramp to get there.
Yeah.
It'd be wonderful with some kind of a lift company and say, hey, we can put a lift in.
Yeah, it would be. We just can't afford to do both.
Right.
And by law, so to speak, for building codes, we have to have a wheelchair ramp. And even the wheelchair ramp, because it's going so high in the air, I mean, we're looking at, $27,000, I think, so far is the cheapest bid we've gotten on the wheelchair ramp, which that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. You look at it and you say, well, but it's going to last for a long, long time.
Right.
Well, that's fine, but it has to be paid for now.
Right, exactly. So we're scrambling, trying to
And
raise the money.
you do some sessions there, correct?
Yes, we actually do a grief program there at My Warriors Place. We have one coming up in July, July 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And there is no cost to a veteran to go through it. We do have very limited
They
spots.
come from all over, correct?
Yes, they do, and they come and stay with us. The only expense they have is getting to us and getting home, because once they're at My Warriors Place, we feed them, we house them, and we put them through the program. And we know that this program can really help them with PTSD issues, with grief issues, helping them to have a very happy and healthy life.
It's so wonderful. If you can put just one of these guys out of the 6
Yes.
back on the street productive, I don't know how much money that saves us all as taxpayers.
Right.
And the grief that would cause if that person isn't.
Right. And we look at it as preventative, because somebody who's already on the street isn't going to be ready for the program, because they probably have other issues that they're dealing with, such as drugs or a mental disorder or alcoholism. But for those that are struggling, maybe they are holding a job, maybe they're not, maybe they're disabled and have a disability income. But, they went and fought for our country, and they deserve to be able to come back and have healthy relationships and be happy. And they're not. And they're struggling every day. And they're the invisible wounds that people don't see. And I think if the public actually saw how much these people were struggling on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute basis, it's one of the reasons the suicide rate is so high. So if we can do anything to help that person build a stronger family relationship, build a stronger community relationship, to be able to live a happy and healthy life, it's definitely worth it.
People say, well, people went off to World War II and didn't come back with this. Yes, they did. We just didn't know it.
Well, and
we just called them bums and went on the street, and we called them, and there's a more awareness today. Dr. Howell from the VA we were talking on this show, and he was saying that if we can just recognize in these guys and get them when they come back, or even before they get out,
Yes.
that the problem exists, we can head it off at the pass.
Yes. Yes. And it really needs to be a preventative thing. We really need to be doing it while they're still serving, because right now, especially, they're doing multiple tours. We're not talking 1, 2, or 3 like World War II or Vietnam. We're talking 8, 9, 10, 16 tours. And to be exposed to those kinds of things, the loss of a brother in arms, the loss of innocence, and the horrors of war that they've had to endure. I mean, it's crazy to think that they would not be affected. In fact,
Well,
I'd be concerned if they weren't affected, because then they're a psychopath, you know, so.
Think, if you spent a year, anyone out there, if you spent a year and everything you did could get you killed,
Yes.
walking past a trash can, getting in a vehicle, any one of those things could get you killed. And then the next year you came home and the people said, war? What war? There's
Yeah.
a war over there? Oh yeah, I read something about that in the paper.
Yeah. Or,
Get over it.
Or I heard it was over.
Yeah. And then the next year, boom, you're back there.
Yeah.
That trash can, when you get home, still is a significant danger in your mind.
Yes, it is.
So helping them with this is extremely important.
Yeah, yeah.
And understanding that it's not just something made up.
Definitely. And the other caveat to all of this too is when they're what we call in theater, in a war zone, and they lose a brother in arms, they don't have the luxury that we do here stateside to kind of be able to go into that frozen state and let your mind and body shut down for a little while, take a month off work.
Right.
You know, no, they're that same day or the very next day back out there, and their lives and the lives of the brothers in arms with them depend on them being alert and able to, you know, protect.
Brothers and sisters in arms.
Yes.
I want to point that out because
Yes.
we may think now, especially those of us who are older, we think of
Right.
men being in this condition. But there's a lot of women, and I know you're serving them too.
Yes, we are. Yes.
So many is there anything, there's so many things there, but is there anything that I've missed talking about with you that you just want to make sure? Give the address again.
It's 101 22nd Street Northwest, Ruskin, Florida 33570. And
The
we're
first Tuesday of every month.
first Tuesday of every month, free coffee and donuts. Please come join us.
At what time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Yes, and
What,
it
till
usually
when?
lasts about 10,
Some of us get
10:30.
up late.
10, 10:30, sometimes
10:30.
11. It just kind of
Depends on how many donuts you have.
Right, and the topic of conversation can tend to.
Of course, if you want to bring along some donuts, that'd be all right.
Yes, yes. So
So exciting. I can't tell you when I've been so favorably impressed with some place that I've went.
thank you.
And you're doing so much for our veterans that it's just fabulous. And there's so many more things. I encourage every one of you to be sure to go out to My Warrior's Place in Ruskin, Florida, and tour it because it's fabulous. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, you know. And Carrie Kowal, Kelly, you're just a special lady. Thank you for being on the show with me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
See you next time.